Time, 18th century. Place, London. Mission, to build the most exquisite furniture this city has ever seen. Welcome to Cabriole. Hi, I'm Sarah, and today I'll be teaching you how to play Cabriole, a worker placement game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Doug Bass, with artwork by Lamberto Azzariti and published by Merida Games, who have sponsored today's video. Let's start by setting up the game. First, place the game board to the side of the play area, leaving space to build a market of cards. Place the black round marker on the first space of the round track and the resource discs and money tokens within reach of all players. Next, shuffle the furniture and special cards marked Deck A, removing any that don't match your player count. These cards will be used in the first, second, and third rounds. Then do the same for the cards marked Deck B, which will be used in rounds 4, 5, and 6. Then, set up the card display by dealing cards to the play area according to your player count. For a 2-player game, deal 3 rows of 4 cards. For a 3-player game, deal 4 rows of 4 cards. And for a 4-player game, increase that to 4 rows of 5 cards. Today, we're setting up for a 2-player game. Each player takes 1 board and 5 assistant pawns, 4 cubes, and 1 disc of their chosen color. Place this disc on the 0 space of the prestige track. Deal each player 1 starter card. This card will show which craftsman you'll start the game with. Use your cubes to mark an apprentice level for each of these craftsmen on your player board. Your starting card will also show you how much money you start the game with. Take that amount from the supply. Then you can flip your starting card to use as a player aid for endgame scoring. The player who most recently crafted or repaired an item of furniture becomes the starting player and should take the first player marker. Then, beginning with the player to the right of the starting player, everyone takes a resource of a type not chosen by another player. For example, if one player chooses walnut, the other players may not choose that resource. Now, we're ready to play. Each round of Cabriole is broken into 4 phases: reset, placement, resolution, and production. You'll skip the reset phase on the first turn, so we'll come back to that later. During the placement phase, players will take turns placing their assistant in the leftmost empty space of any of the cues on the board, paying attention to the player count limitations. For example, this cue has 2 spaces available for a 2-player game, 3 for a 3-player game, and 4 for a 4-player game. There are cues to gain project or special cards from the display, to train your craftsmen, or to acquire resources. Assistants will be resolved in the order they are placed in the cues. Players may place more than one of their assistants in the same cue, if there are available spaces. During every round except the last, when at least 1 assistant has been placed beside all the card rows except 1, the remaining row immediately becomes off-limits for the rest of the round. Place the off-limits marker over these cue spaces to make sure nobody places there. Now it's time to resolve our actions, beginning with the card display cues. Each card display row corresponds to a cue on the main game board. Starting with the top row and the leftmost assistant, each player with an assistant in the queue will choose 1 card from the row matching the queue their assistant is in, along with any coins put on that card during the reset phase. Cards include project cards and special cards. Project cards can be completed during the production phase and require the resources and craftsmen listed on the bottom of the card to be completed, but it is not necessary to have all of the resources or craftsmen to draft the card to your play area. Unfinished project cards are stored on the left side of your play area, and you are allowed to have a maximum of 6 unfinished project cards at any one time. Special cards will allow you to take the indicated amount of money or resources, or even train a new craftsman, removing the card from the game. In addition to the cues for each row of display cards, there is a cue for extra projects. Assistants in this queue allow you to select any 2 of the leftover display cards, including the off-limits cards. But the off-limits cards will cost you an extra 2 coins for 1 card, or 5 coins for 2 cards. The Guildhall queue will allow you to hire or train craftsmen, paying the required cost and placing or moving cubes on the area of your player board that matches the craftsman you are hiring or training. Once a craftsman has reached master level, they may not be trained again. Lastly, resolve the resource market queues. Starting with the oak queue, players will move their assistant from the queue to the action space with the amount of the resource they'd like to purchase, returning that number of coins to the supply and taking that number of the resource. The resources can be placed in your warehouse or directly onto a project card. Only one assistant can occupy each space, and if you decide not to purchase the resources with the assistant in the queue, either because you can't afford to or choose not to, simply retrieve your assistant and take 2 coins instead. Resources are not intended to be limited, so if you run out, use the multiplier tokens. However, you are limited to a maximum of 8 of each resource. Once all queues have been resolved, it's time to move on to the production phase. In the production phase, players will complete project cards and collect money or gain prestige points. Beginning with the starting player, you may complete any project cards by discarding the resources indicated at the bottom of the card. You must also have the craftsman listed at the bottom of the card in your studio. The shield next to the craftsman type indicates the minimum required level for each type of craftsman. For example, to complete this chest, players must have an apprentice carver and an apprentice turner in their studio. Apprentices can only work on 1 project per round, journeymen 2 projects per round, and master craftsmen can work on 4 projects per round. For each completed project, players can choose to gain either the number of coins at the top left corner by gaining them from the supply, or the number of prestige points at the top right by moving their prestige disc on the score track, but not both. When all players have completed the projects they want, the round ends. At the end of the 6th round, proceed to final scoring. If not, start a new round with the reset phase, which we skipped in round 1, so let's talk about it now. The reset phase mostly deals with the card display. First, remove any cards left in the display that already have 3 coins on them. Next, add 1 coin to any remaining cards. Finally, refill any empty spots in the display with cards from the deck until you have the same amount of cards and rows as you did during setup. In rounds 2 and 3, be sure to use deck A, and in rounds 4, 5, and 6, deck B. After playing through 6 complete rounds of reset, placement, resolution, and production phases, it's time for final scoring. Players will score points for completing vignettes, which are sets of completed projects comprising of a chair, a chest, and a table. A complete vignette is worth 10 prestige points, while a partial vignette, composed of 2 of the 3 elements, chair and table, chair and chest, or table and chest, is worth 5 points. Add any points earned from the vignettes to a player's prestige score on the track. Next, score points for training your craftsmen according to this chart. For example, if I ended the game with 2 craftsmen at journeyman level and 2 craftsmen at master level, I'd score 6 points plus 15 points for a total of 21 points. These points are also added to each player's prestige score. Players can then exchange any leftover resources for their base cost. An oak or walnut will earn you 2 coins, 3 coins for a silk, and 4 coins per leftover mahogany. Then, take 1 prestige point for every 5 coins left in your coffer. Lastly, each player will need to subtract 5 points per unfinished project card left in their player area. The player with the most points is the winner. In the case of a tie, the player who went later in turn order at the start of the game wins. And that's how you play Cabriole. It blends worker placement with resource management as you balance training your craftsmen and completing furniture for prestige or profit. If you enjoyed this teach, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any future how to plays and reviews. Thanks again to Meriday Games for sponsoring today's video. And now, go and craft something magnificent.